Hello all and welcome back to FRS Season 5. We are here round 7 in Xbox Division 1 at the Circuit Sakir in Bahrain. It's the 5th time that it's been on the calendar for the FRS. It's featured in every single one of the 5 seasons. And this night race takes place at this track here. 15 corners, 5.4 kilometers around, and 3 DRS zones. Plenty of opportunity for overtaking around this one. And it's a bit of a mix-up on strategy. You have to definitely try and preserve the tires around this higher degradation track. 352 meters from pole to turn 1 is the 3rd longest of the season and leads you into this spot here. Turn 1, a heavy braking zone hairpin. Even at the start of the race, easy to make up positions, and of course the long DRS zone leads into it. But if you don't get the move down into turn 1, you have another blast of DRS when you head down into turn 4. Another medium to low speed right-hander allows drivers to either finish the pass from turn 1 or fight back. The middle sector is punctuated by this tricky double left-hander, turns 9 and 10. As you're turning and braking downhill, it's going to be quite a challenge for those with no ABS to keep the tires from wearing out. The soft, medium, and hard compounds around this track, the mediums being 1.1 seconds slower per lap, the hards 1.7. In ideal conditions, you can make a one-stop soft onto medium work, although early safety cars may force drivers onto the hard compounded tire, which is still a decent race tire around Bahrain. Now let's get into qualifying and see if we can rectify the unfortunate result we had in Japan with that pedal failure, costing us a 4th place finish and earning us only 2 points for finishing 9th. But here we are jumping out on the track for the first lap of the session, coming out of the last 2 corners, getting the power down, opening the DRS down this long front straight. As we cross over the grid here and under the start lights, you can see the long run you have down into turn 1. Find a braking marker right around the 100-meter board into this sharp hairpin under 50 miles an hour, and then being very careful on the traction through turns 2 and 3 as you open up the DRS for the second blast of a straight here, getting up to nearly just over 190 miles an hour where you're braking hard for this 4th gear right-hander. Carry as much speed as you can, open up the exit as much as you want, and then you're into this downhill S section. Very easy to lose the car on the curbs, and now hard on the brakes into the turn 8 hairpin. And just as quick as you were going down the last couple of corners, you are back up the hill, cresting, and then clipping the apex of 9 hard on the brakes into turn 10, modulating that brake pressure to keep that front left from locking up. Because that's the tire you're going to need to protect around here. Not only can you lock it up to turn 10, but it's under high loads, under corners like the one coming up at turn 11. It's the left-hander, but then turn 12 and 13, both right-handers at high speed where you're really loading up that front left tire, and trying to keep it in the temperature window is also critical. Now a long straight down between turn 13 and 14. No DRS here, but it is an opportunity for slipstreaming in order to try and make a move down into turn 14 as you clip the apex and then easy on the power. It's an area where I've DNF'd in qualifying before by putting the power down too aggressively and spinning out. But we're going to cross the line, go at 127.5 for our initial lap time. Now we'll get back out on track, sitting 9th place provisionally after our first lap time as we're getting ready to start our second lap. Now we left some time the first lap on the table in, I would say, turns 1 and turn 4. So we'll see if we can make up that gap on the Delta. We appear to be just a hair slower, about 100.5 slower than our previous run, but hard on the brakes. A little slower on the entry into turn 1, but we're going to try and carry a little more speed on the exit. And you can see that Delta dropping as we got the power down a little bit better. Gained about 1.5 tenths through that first couple of corners. Now turn 4, we've drifted a little bit wide. A little bit of understeer through the corner. We didn't gain quite as much time. We weren't able to get on the power as early as we wanted, but we had a much better run through the S section here. And now if we can get a better exit from turn 8, we'll have an opportunity to claim quite a bit of time. So here we are coming up the hill and a much better exit on traction there. 3.5 tenths nearly up on our previous best. A bit of a lockup into turns 9 and 10, and that's going to cost us some time on entry, but we do get the car rotated and the power down for the exit. Nearly a half second up on our previous best, looking to get down into the 26s as we get on the throttle here through turn 11, gaining more time as we just take a little tighter line. But we're going to lose a little bit of time. We got a little close to the inside curve, had to lift to keep the car rotating properly, but much better move through turn 13 there. And now down this back straight, we are up about 3/4 of a second, 0.750. We'll see if we can carry that through to the line. A little slower on entry, and just lost about a half a tenth, or about a tenth actually, through that final corner. But we do go into the 26s, a 26.868, but it's only enough to put us up to still provisionally 9th, so still time to be found. Now as we get ready to head out for our final run of qualifying, with only 2 minutes left to go, little snap of oversteer getting on the power for the final corner, and that's going to cost us some time. As you can see, we're losing a bit of time on the Delta, as we are provisionally 11th at the start of this last flying lap. So trying to carry some speed into the entry and exit of turn 1, about flat with where we were before, a little slower on entry but a little quicker on exit, and so we are just a hair down on our previous best time as we head down into turn 4. Turn 4 was an opportunity for some time to be gained as we keep it a little more tidy, and we are going to go into the green on the Delta, 0.84 above our best lap at the Sector 1 split, and now a fair bit better through the S's, as we are now up about a tenth and a half. Quicker on entry, a little slower on exit through turn 8, and now the trickiest part, the part where you can lose a lot of time, turns 9 and 10. We did lock up last time through there, so we are able to basically keep it about even. We had a little bit more of a lockup into turn 10 that time, so we're still right about that 1/10 of an improvement. Now we'll see if we can get that back through these sweepers. Although we pretty much nailed the sweepers last time we were through, we are able to hold the power a little better through the right-hander of turn 12, so that's going to gain us a bit of time, but just about even with our exit on turn 13. So we're still only coming into the last corner about a half a tenth up, though we did drop a whole tenth off of our best lap before through the final corner. So you can see we carry a lot more speed through, and now we are about 1.3 tenths up on this Delta. So we gain about a tenth or more through that final corner, go to a 26.723, and that puts us at the moment provisionally P9 with a few other drivers left to run. So here's the final qualifying order. QX Nemesis takes pole position, MJ Povey in P2, LC Fighter in 3rd. No surprises from those top 3. SA in 4th, Queasy in 5th, Spen in 6th, Pepmeister in 7th, Death Star, Brenchel, and then ourselves in 10th. So the first car, the last car, unfortunately, stuck on those soft tires. Gali, Racer, El Gloverino, all behind, going to be starting on the medium tire. So here are our lights out. Away we go. We get a decent launch off the line. Not perfect. You can see Cryptic, our teammate in the other Mercedes, on the mediums, looking to the inside. We're going to defend hard to the inside and take a very measured approach into turn 1. Although Issei and the Red Bull get tangled up ahead of us, so that's going to allow Cryptic to sneak through on his medium tires and now stand here right on our gearbox. We're using plenty of that overtake in order to defend to the inside. We're not taking the normal racing line, not opening that door up, and we are just about going to hold them off, although that's going to allow Gali to slip through on those medium tires. So Cryptic, a pretty good start for him, getting in amongst the soft tire runners. We run a little wide, have to make a bit of a correction on the bumpy curbing there on the exit of turn 7, but Cryptic and Brenchel both getting a little squirrely on the power as they race their way down into turn 9 and 10 ahead of us. We are just trying to manage our position, not do anything foolish. I know we've got the tire advantage over Gali, and Cryptic, although quick, is prone to mistakes this season. Hasn't been present for most of the races and has had mistakes and retired early in all the rest of the races that he has taken part in. So he is going to try and fight with Brenchel up ahead. We are just going to try and manage the tires, although in the dirty air, the heavy fuel loads, we run out a little bit wide, and that puts us our first track limit destroying. But there it is. Cryptic gets onto the curbing, spins up those rear tires, and into the inside barrier he goes. So he's cleared out of the way. Now we have 8 tenths of a gap to try and catch up to Brenchel and Pepmeister in front of us, but we are up into 8th place now with Gali on those medium tires, 0.8 of a second behind us, followed up by El Gloverino. So we need to try in this next lap to open up and maintain that 1 second gap to the car behind. DRS will be enabled at the start of the next lap, and you will get their first dose of DRS down this straight here into turn 4 as we're crossing it. But we're 1.2 seconds ahead of Gali in 9th now, and we are still managing to stay right around the mark, about 7 tenths with Brenchel and Pepmeister.
Okay, clear.
Now, one thing that is hampering a little bit is my insistence on running no assist, no ABS, no traction control. Normally, it allows you to be a little bit quicker at most circuits. However, here, as I've mentioned with turn 9 and 10, how tricky that braking zone is, ABS is a huge help there, and through turns 1, 2, and 3, having traction control on medium definitely gives you a big advantage in getting the power down, because it's such a slippery, such a tricky section in order to get that nailed down. But We've got 1.6 seconds now, 1.5 to Gali, and we're still right about 7/10 of Brenchel, so we should have the opportunity to make up some time. But Queasy up ahead, who had that amazing strategy at Japan, has spun coming through turn 13 this time. Might have caught the death curve of turn 12, where if you touch that curve, you're in big, big trouble. And he has spun out and goes right behind us. We are in very deep, late on the brakes that time, made a mistake, and that's going to cost us a fair bit of time. It actually drops us out of the DRS range of Brenchel and Petmeister ahead, so we lost about 6/10 of a second by making that one mistake, and that's going to have pretty big implications. We're going to jump ahead now to lap 4 of 29, just one lap further ahead. We're still outside of that DRS zone, but there is Spen spun to the inside of turn 3 there, so another position up. We're up into 6th now, just by trying to stay out of trouble and not making any mistakes. Looks like just on the very tip of the track map, you can see behind the webcam, you can see that teal dot moving slowly. And that was Cryptic making yet another mistake. I believe that is turn 13 there that we are looking at on the map. Now, of course, when I'm racing, I don't see my own webcam on the screen. It's just the track map, so I'm able to keep that. But here we are, lap 6 of 29. We've maintained about 2 seconds to Gali behind. The soft tires are going to start falling off at some point soon, and we have fallen about 2 seconds off of Brenchel. But Racer is out of the session, and a full safety car has been called for this. So we're about 3 or 4 laps early on our normal pit window for the medium tires. You typically want to get on the mediums at about lap 9 or 10 to be able to take them to the end. Lap 6 is going to be, it would be particularly risky, and now coming around these corners, luckily we're pretty early on in the lap. We have a lot of time to consider the option. There's basically 3 options out ahead of us, and it is either A, take the hard tires and go to the end. No pit stops necessary, of course. Number 2, come in for the medium tires early and make a second pit stop, because staying out on the softs is just not going to be an option. Once the race gets going green again, it'll basically be the soft tires pit window. Or C, try and put the mediums on now and go to the end of the race. It'll take quite a lot of tire management and could potentially put us into the danger zone, so to speak, as far as punctures go at the end, because it is that front left tire that is the one that is the big issue. But as we're coming down the final couple of corners, I've got it selected on the hard tires at the moment as we come through the final corner, and we're about to have to make our official final decision. They know we're coming in, and as we enter the pit window, there it is. We switch it to the medium compound. We are going to go, deciding to go with option C, which is tire management. Try and save these mediums and get to the end. The hard tires going to be a little bit slower than what the softs are as we release from the pit exit there, and we should slot right back into where we were. Everybody ahead of us made that pit stop as well. Doesn't look like anybody is opting to stay out. There may have been a medium runner that stayed out, but it doesn't, if they did, they were quite far to the back. It looks like everybody is taking the opportunity, because the hards can go basically the entire race distance. So here we are now on the medium compound of tire, and gambling that the amount of time that we can gain on the medium tires will outweigh how much we have to do saving-wise against the hard tire to the end of this race. Now here we are on lap 8, so a couple laps under the safety car after that pit stop, and we are about to get ready to go racing once again, weaving to get those tires up to temperature, as they had fallen quite cold, and I was doing as little weaving as possible on the laps until I knew that the safety car was coming in, to try and save the tires as much as we possibly can. Very slow through the final corners, just waiting for the leaders to take off. Nemesis has a bit of a moment getting on the power out of that final corner, a bit of wheel spin, and that's going to put him under attack as we get on throttle on the overtake button. Gali has opted, since he started on the mediums, to go on to the hard tire. Didn't really have much of a choice otherwise. He's going to look to the inside on the restart, dive up the inside, and he overcooks his braking point, is into the side of Brenchel, and has a big snap of oversteer coming out of the corner. That's going to allow El Glavarino right up the inside of us. Brenchel luckily able to avoid any damage from that. I think Gali was the only one to, I think he even managed to avoid damage based on his pace for the rest of the race. So he slots back in towards the tail end of the train, and now we just have to set our sights up ahead as we once again are in the train and have a tire advantage to the car behind. So One driver that we have to look out for is going to be Issei, who's on those medium tires behind El Gloverino. Has a good opportunity to try and make an overtake with that tire advantage, but with the full safety car, we still have 3 laps before that DRS is re-enabled. So just like the start of the race, we need to utilize those 3 laps in order to try and build that gap that we need in order to not be getting attacked from behind. And hopefully El Gloverino can stay in front of Issei as well. It'll all depend on their setup and their wing levels. Now, based on the early stages of the race, I noticed I was probably running, if anything, just maybe 1 click higher wing than some of the other drivers on the front. Rear wings seem to be pretty common across, so I think I wasn't giving up too much on the straight line speed, and I did drop my wing 1 click at the start of the race and still kept that throughout the race. But here we are closing up to Brenchel. We don't have to be, just like last week in Japan, we don't have to be so stingy with our overtake button usage. Just like Japan, we gain close to 10% per lap of not running it, so there is an opportunity to save that overtake button a little bit quicker rather than when we had it at Canada, where it was like 3 to 4% regen per lap, based on how the car is deploying it in the number of straights. So Issei is still doing El Gloverino is still doing a very good job keeping Issei behind, and we are staying right about half second behind Brenchel, who is starting to try and catch up to the Red Bull of Pepmeister up ahead. But we're running in 6th, so we're inside our starting position by several positions. There's a little lockup on the initial braking into turn 9 and 10 there, which is tough, but it looks like Issei has made a mistake out of turn 10, and Spen actually goes by Issei and is now the one up behind El Gloverino. So that's going to give Gloverino a little bit of extra breathing space in order to try and defend. We should see the DRS get re-enabled this next lap. But you can see wear-wise already on 11% on that front left tire, and that's going to be the problem tire to take to the end of this race. 19 laps still left to go, and I'm already kind of trying to do my best to roll the way into the corners, and I'm going to have to be even more careful with how we brake into turn 9 and 10, as DRS does get enabled this time around. So jumping ahead now, a few more laps, lap 17 of 29, and Spen is catching us rather quickly. He's pushing those medium tires quite a bit harder than we are, and you can see that front left tire in the tire wear indicator, 36%. Now, the number that we definitely have to be concerned about is 75. 75% on the damage rate that we run is where the tire starts to have a chance of a puncture, where it can just wear so much that it dies out, and you essentially just get RNG'd, just keeps running checks on, is it going to puncture, is it going to puncture? And of course, the more percentage you have, the higher that likelihood gets, up to 100% when it's guaranteed to just delaminate on you. And we did experience a puncture once in our FRS career. I believe it was last season at Austria, where it was an intermediate to very late dry conditions. We ended up staying on the intermediates that blew out in the second to last corner. But here Spen goes to the inside into turn 1, utilizing that extra grip he's got on those tires that he's been pushing a little bit harder than us. He has 3 seconds of time penalties. We're going to try and fight back to the inside of turn 4, but he is going to lean on those medium tires a little bit more, carry that speed around the outside of turn 4, and take that position away from us, as we had been dropping off of Brenchel. You can see Brenchel 3.4 seconds out ahead of us. So another driver that is just a little bit quicker than we are, and also seems to be using those tires a little bit more. And that's going to put the other McLaren of Stanier behind, who we've had a few scraps with, although you can see him in the rearview mirror going very wide through turn 10 and losing quite a bit of time to us. And now we're just going to try and stick here in the DRS of Spen, because with that 3-second time penalty, of course, if we stay right where we are to the end of the race, we will jump him based on that penalty. Although he's made a mistake, had to lift out of some back end sliding through turn 12. Unfortunately, no real opportunity to overtake into turn 13. So we do have to just kind of stay behind. Our overtake down to 14%. So we are burning a lot of that power at this stage just to try and stay with him in that DRS zone. Going to be pretty tough if we're going to try and actually make an overtake happen on him. But here we are with the DRS open in the slipstream, closing down into turn 1. But we're going to lift out early, get on the brakes, and try and maybe attack him into turn 4. Jose, he does have a little bit more pace than us, but like I said, we don't need to make an overtake happen on Spen. If he's able to start closing his way down to Brenchel, which it doesn't look like he is, though, based on the deltas, we will jump past him. It's really going to be about trying to manage these tires for these last 10 laps, as we're on 41% on that front left. I'm not worried about any of the other tires getting into high deg ranges, but that front left is going to be the major concern. Now, you do start to lose a fair bit of performance around 45 to 50%, so you do start to go quite a bit slower. You hit a bit of a cliff around there, but then it kind of levels back out as you creep your way up to that 75% mark. But we're staying right there in that DRS range of Spen. So Brenchel still about 4 seconds ahead, Stanier 1.8. And I'm thinking at this stage, I'm doing a lot of tire preservation in the way I'm racing with these other guys, and they seem to be pushing pretty hard on those medium tires. I believe that some of these guys are going to have to take an extra pit stop before the end of this race. I don't think that they are going to preserve the tires the rest of the way. So once again, we're in the DRS, low on the overtake battery, so we're not utilizing it. We're just kind of using that slipstream to pull us along into Spen's territory. We actually close up quite a bit on the brakes this time into turn 1. Maybe have an opportunity, but a little snap of oversteer as we get on the power a little too aggressively, and that costs us that a little bit of time that we've gained in the braking zone of turn 1 on the exit of turn 3. So we're definitely starting to feel the tires scrub quite a bit more. It's getting to a stage where it is getting harder and harder to keep the pace up with these tires, and we are getting very close to falling out of that DRS range of Spen. And if once that happens, we are going to be at a bit of mercy to Stanier, who has, without the DRS down the straight, been relatively well keeping up with us. But there it is, 1.2 seconds as we cross the detection line. So we have officially fallen out of that DRS range from Spen Wolf, and Stanier now 1.2 seconds back of us. The big gains for them are through turns 1 and 2, and of course through turns 9 and 10. But jumping ahead to lap 22 of 29, Stanier has come into the pit lane, and we can see 2 cars ahead now diving into the pit lanes, Brenchel and Spen Wolf. So both of those guys who went onto the medium tires not going to be able to take it all the way to the end, as we are still managing our way around. But now Gully 1.9 seconds back of us on the hard tire that at this stage of wear is definitely quicker than these mediums. And so I am likely going to lose that one position to him at this stage. And I'm just kind of keeping an eye right now on the tire temperatures, because I'm trying to kind of keep half an eye on them to make sure that I'm not spiking the surface temperature of that front left too hard. The faster that front left surface temperature climbs, the lower of those 2 degrees Celsius numbers. That is the surface temperature. The temperature above is the core temperature, which if you get it over about 104 degrees Celsius, you start to lose grip significantly on the tire. So I'm really just trying to make sure that I'm managing that tire temperature as much as I can, because that'll indicate whether I'm scrubbing the tires or I'm pushing them too hard. So back to the tire wear indicator, 56% on that front left with 6 laps left to go, and trying to do mental math at this stage is pretty tough. I'm losing about 2 to 3% of wear per lap on it in the way I'm driving, so it is going to be pretty close at the end of this one, whether we are going to be limping a punctured car home again, or a damaged car, as we did last week in Japan, when the brake failure meant we had no front wing for the last lap of the race, or if we will be messing with the RNG. But Petmeister also into the pit lanes onto the soft tires with only 5 laps left to go in this one. I'm thinking that's a little late for him to try and make that. There are a couple other cars that did go onto the soft tires that are going to be very rapid, probably about 2.5 seconds a lap quicker than me at this stage. But with about a 20-second pit lane lost, they would need about 10 laps in order to make it work. But here we are on lap 26 of 29, 64% wear on that front left, and Gali to the inside with the DRS, with the overtake. Goes a little bit deep. We're going to try and cut back on in turn 1, tuck right up against his gearbox into turn 3 with the DRS, with the overtake, going around the outside, and now unfortunately trying to hang around the outside with this little grip is just not something that's going to come off very well. We are going to fight through turns 5, try and get to the inside on turn 6. He's going to go leave us the space wide, but He's fully ahead by the time we hit the braking zone for turn 8 and has made that move stick. And at this point, 65%. I've only got 10% left to play with in these last 4 laps or so. So we are going to very much likely get into that danger zone of tire deflation on the last laps. We're looking, El Gloverino 3.8 seconds back, likely not going to catch us on the hards as we have a decent amount of pace, and especially we're now going to be sitting in the DRS zone of Gali, so we won't be losing too much time. But Pepmeister is one to look out for, 6.3 seconds back of us on a tire that is about 2 seconds or so a lap faster. So it could get particularly very close at the end, although it'll have to depend on how quickly he's able to dispatch El Gloverino off of those, who is on those hard tires, and how quick he can get into the DRS. But we are managing to stay within the DRS of Gali up ahead, now 67% on that front left tire with 3 laps left to go in this race. But once again, we're quite close to the back end of Gali through that complex of corners. We're going to stay in the DRS, and you can see on the timing tower, actually, Spenwolf, who has the fastest lap of the race at this moment, has actually overtaken Pepmeister and is now going to be the one trying to attack El Gloverino. We'll see if he's going to be able to get through. Now we're jumping ahead to lap 28, the end of lap 28. You can see that front left tire indicator, 74%. So we are definitely going to tick over 75%, and it's going to come down to luck whether or not we are going to be able to keep this tire inflated for the final lap. We are using that overtake, using the DRS to stay close to Gali. About 2 seconds of a gap to spend, though. He does have that 3-second time penalty, and Pepmeister hasn't really been able to close up, but Spen making very good headway on us on the last couple of laps. And Pepmeister is actually able to get through as Spen makes a mistake through turn 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3 it would appear. And so Pepmeister, 2.7 seconds the gap on a tire, and I'm going to be really babying the tires for these last couple of corners. You can see how much time we've lost to Gali through the S section, how much I'm just rolling the car in, being very gentle with my steering input and my braking inputs, especially into turn 10 here. You can see kind of on and off, easing off the brakes, staying just under that lockup potential, and then getting on the power. Last DRS zone that we'll have help from. Luckily, we were able to stay inside of it, and Pepmeister is at 1.9 seconds. And he's going to have tons more grip as QX Nemesis is first across the line. He's going to take that race win. I believe LC Fighter is coming home second. MJ Povey in P3, and then it is Gali and myself, P4 and P5. No penalties for either of us, and there we are, 76%. So we're in the danger zone officially of the tire wear, and it's just going to have to survive the last 2 corners, or really 1 corner and change, because turn 15 isn't much of a corner. It's really part of turn 14. But Pepmeister stays 1.3 seconds back, and we cross the line safely for another top 5 finish this season. Would have been nice to have the P4 last week and this week, but there was nothing keeping Gali behind with the amount that I was having to conserve those tires. But a clever tire strategy allowed us to stay alive in that one. Definitely took all of my tire management skills that I know how to use to keep that front left from degrading too rapidly. And you saw plenty of other cars that were on that same strategy, pit onto the same tires that I was, had to be careful with or had to take an extra pit stop even. We're finally getting a decent result. Gali gets the driver of the day from the game, having started 1 position behind us and finishing 1 position ahead of us. Means we are pretty close to grabbing that driver of the day. But QX Nemesis standing on top of the championship table, a 1-2 for Aston Martin today, and then MJ Povey is in the Williams in P3, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is going to keep QX Nemesis actually at the top of the championship table. Nemesis, the Season 1 Xbox Division champion, Povey taking the next 3 on the trot, so another good championship battle going on this season for them, and we'll hang for just a second, and we will take a look at the final finishing order. So there it is. QX Nemesis from pole position wins, has a 3-second time penalty, but finished well clear of his teammate LC Fighter. MJ Povey in 3rd, Gallimooms in 4th, myself in 5th, Pepmeister in 6th, Brenschel in 7th, Stanier falling all the way to 8th with that mistake. And you can see I'm just checking the lap times at the end of the race to see how I compared, and definitely had some consistent laps at the end. But we do have a couple of weeks break now. We will be returning to Circuit Paul Ricard, so we're going to France for the first time in FRS history next. But thank you guys for joining me. I'll catch you next time. Peace.